and welcome to Suitcase Coder, the podcast. My name is Laura, and I'm the host of this podcast where I share my journey from joining a coding bootcamp to becoming a freelance web developer. My goal eventually is to become a remote freelance web developer, which is kind of a little bit iffy right now since we're all under somewhat of a lockdown worldwide because of this corona crisis, but that's still my goal, and I do believe that I will get there someday. So if you're wanting a similar path, whether that's making a career switch into tech or wanting to kind of up your freelancing gig as a developer or as any kind of other career, then I hope that this podcast helps you out as I share my struggles and accomplishments and what works and what doesn't work for me. So listen along and let me know if you find this helpful at all. As you know, this week is a little bit weird just because the whole world is on Corona watch. Yeah, it's pretty serious. It's pretty serious. I have been staying home this entire week, which means I'm back to my regular microphone. So if it doesn't sound as good as last week's, that is the excuse. So for many of you, I assume that you are hopefully working from home and that hopefully you're still able to work. And secondly, if you are, I'm assuming that a lot of you have turned to video conferencing and video chats for your weekly meetings, daily meetings, and just to kind of make everything a little bit more normal as you are working from home. So I want to share with you some basic video chatting, video conferencing etiquette that I have learned in this past year as I have used video conferencing a whole ton through interviews, Q&As, mentor sessions, meeting people on Slack, getting to know people. So I wanted to share that with you. Hopefully these tips help you normalize the idea of video conferencing. And they're pretty basic, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So one is definitely to dress appropriately. This is something that I learned just 2 weeks ago when I had an interview, and every interview that I've had prior to this one, I had been asked to turn off my webcam for whatever reason, and because they were more focused on me sharing my screen. And so for this particular interview that I had 2 weeks ago, I had just come back from a run. I was feeling great, but a little sweaty. And the first thing they ask is, "Hey, do you mind turning on your webcam?" Of course I minded, but I had no other choice than to turn it on and present myself as sweaty as I was. So just keep that in mind. Like this, a lot of you guys, this is still a professional setting, even though you might be sitting on your couch. So just dress appropriately, put on some pants, be aware that you may be asked to turn on your webcam and you want to be as presentable as possible. Yeah, lesson learned on that one. The second one was the possibility of having to share your screen. And with that comes hiding all of the things that you don't want other people to see, whether that's your Facebook page, your open bank statements, or some embarrassing spring break pictures from 10 years ago. So just keep that in mind. Whatever you have on your computer that you don't want others seeing, hide that and keep open what you do want for the meeting, which brings me to my next point. And this is like good for you to be prepared, but also just a little bit of etiquette for others on the call is to have everything that you know you're going to need for the call ready, including downloading the software that you're going to use, whether that's Zoom or Skype or Google Hangouts. Just make sure you know how to use it and have that set up before your meeting starts. Another thing is if you're sharing a presentation or sharing a certain link or whatever, make sure you have those documents up and ready to be shared for when it's your turn to share those things, because it's annoying having to sit there and you being like, "Oh, I'm sorry," or like what happened to me just the other day with my boss was I was getting help on something and I wasted 10 minutes of his time and 10 minutes of my time looking for a password that I needed to be able to get the help that I was looking for. So just keep that in mind. Have everything like ready to go and prepared before your meeting time. Another thing that I want to address, and this goes for, keep in mind that there's different kinds of video conferencing. There's one-on-one video conferencing. You might see that more on interview type settings. Another one is group video conferencing, and there's two different kinds of that. So like whether it's one person talking to a group of people or it's everybody having a conversation via video chat. Maybe not for the one-on-one, but for the group settings, I think a really big thing that helps everybody else on the call is to mute your microphone when you're not talking. That makes all the difference because any excess background noise can make it really difficult for others to hear the person who's talking, but also kind of distract the person who is talking. So mute yourself if it's not your turn to talk. Another thing is be respectful of the time that you are talking. Like, keep all of that water cooler chat and monologue about how your dog is doing for messaging on Slack, because video conferencing, for some reason, it's just you want it to be shorter and quicker, and you want to get to the point and then get off the call as quickly as possible so that you can go on and be more productive outside of the call. So try to keep that chat kind of like to a minimum, just to respect other people's times more than anything. Oh, and kind of in line with this is wherever you are working remotely, find a quiet spot. Get away from a barking dog, a loud street, or a running dryer that might be making a lot of excess background noise. This just kind of helps because some noises are extremely annoying to hear when you're on video conferencing. Like somebody whistling, do not whistle or clap or make any like excessively loud noises, because it comes across like extremely loud on the other person's ears, and you just don't want to be that annoying person making all of that extra noise. So find your quiet spot. Make sure you have good lighting if you're using the camera, good enough microphones. They don't have to be excellent. If you don't have any, like, you can use your computer's microphone, but find a quiet spot. Another thing is make sure to wait your turn to speak. If you are having one of those like conversation chats, then just make sure like to be respectful and not try to talk over somebody, because it can be annoying and confusing, and it could just kind of like mess with the technology. I don't think that's true. It's just a little bit of etiquette. Another thing that I remember from my Q&A session, so this is something where, let's say you have one person speaking and everybody's kind of taking turns to speak to that person. Make your points to the point, quick, easy to understand. That way you're not taking anybody else's chance to be able to ask other questions as well. I think that's it. I ran through this really quickly. Hopefully you are able to work remotely from home or from wherever you're stationed. Hopefully you found this video important. Before we go, this week's action item is to wash your hands, stay home. I'm just kidding. I challenge you this week to get comfortable with video conferencing, whether that's video conferencing a friend or recording yourself for 5 minutes. As a developer and as somebody who's going to be joining a boot camp, maybe if that's what you're going to do. I think video conference is something that comes up a lot, especially for interviews or for meeting people, getting help online, getting to know your like online tech community. So get comfortable with a camera. I think that's my action item for this week. And my coding challenge for this week is the FizzBuzz challenge. Now, if you haven't heard of this, it's a pretty common question to be asked during interviews. So you're given a number, and if that number is even, you want your function to return fizz. If that number is odd, then you want it to return buzz. If the number is either even or odd, you would like to return fizz buzz. And there's a lot of different like ways of doing this challenge, but this is kind of like the main one. So yeah, so if you want to know more details about that, head over to my website at www.suitcasecoder.com, where I will be posting both the weekly challenges and links to the solutions to the weekly challenges. And you can find out a little bit more about me if you're interested. And the other thing is, if you are finding these podcasts at all helpful, or if you know somebody that might benefit from them, then by all means subscribe and share the links. This podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts. I also record every podcast episode, and you can find that on my YouTube channel at Suitcase Coder. Yeah, I hope you find this helpful and have a great week. Stay safe, stay inside, and until next time, bye.